cloud. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2:05. We will be together at least an hour, and we'll see about the questions and so forth. I'm going to welcome everyone, and understanding that some of you may be here for the first time, are not familiar with Dr. Kiriac's research and his success and the products, the formulas that are available and that are integrated part of our conversation today. We are talking about the BIOSUPERFOOD increasing, bettering the processes, the functions of our liver and pancreas. We are focusing on one aspect of health amongst thousands of in our metabolism. I will share my screen. We're going to use images that can say thousands of words sometimes with one picture. So can you see this chart? Let's go to the beginning. Can you see this chart, Linda? Or
yes, I could see your wonderful chart.
Wonderful, I don't know, but all right. So that's the topic today. As I said, many of you are not necessarily familiar. I want to make sure you know, and those of us that are familiar, I want to remind you that we are here today because of Dr. Kiriac's 15, frankly, 30, and even now 40 years of research. But the first 15 years yielded the formulas that we have today that we are benefiting from every day of our life, those that are already using it. I will not read line by line, but suffice to say that millions of animals were involved in various trials and tests, from very small trials to extremely large trials. When you're talking 1.5 million poultry farm, 1.5 million heads, 15,000 heads of cow, dairy cow, and so forth. 54,000 pigs on a pig farm. And those research were all aimed at solving epidemic of cancers and tumors and various hygiene issues, infectious conditions, the bacterial issues on large farms in Russia that had been formed as a result of the communist system when they acquired all the farms and made them into these large, monstrous factories. And the research was to solve as well issues of cancers and various diseases, including cardiovascular disease, including, we can even mention blood sugar issues, because the fundamental issues in all species. Subsequently, there were projects in North America and Canada and the United States to sort of demonstrate that the results obtained in Russia were the same here. The research is done. Often people ask us, are you conducting research more? Is there more research, more news? The answer is, frankly, no, because we already know that it works. It was proven undeniably. So I want to set the stage. I wrote a book after speaking with Dr. Kiriac for nearly a year, every day of my life. And he would ask me, Roland, I told you this already. Don't you take notes? So eventually I said, I'm going to take notes. And I decided to share his life, his story in a booklet, so that I wouldn't lose my voice telling it to so many people. I was very passionate, as I remain very passionate about his life work. Title of the book is Awakening the Genius Within. Dr. Kiriac, when we first met, explained to me in French how consuming. If somebody would you please mute yourself? Hear some background noise. How consuming these blends of algae affected rapidly the brain, and particularly the hypothalamus of the brain, which is equivalent, if you wish, to a conductor of the largest harmonic orchestra that you can imagine. Think that every cell in your body is an instrument, is a musician. There's 100 trillion cells, and they're all really in cooperation, in biofeedback constantly with the hypothalamus of the brain, which regulates, coordinates, issues commands, and the organs and the glands, even the cells, are slave to this very positive network. Hence, awakens the genius within. I want to take a little bit of time to explain how that can be, because I'm often asked, as is Dr. Kiriac and as is our staff, how can BioSuperFood be so different than other algae or other supplements and so forth? It's understandable. I was very skeptical until I understood the biologically, energetically, the mechanism of action of food. BioSuperFood is a food, first thing to understand. It is the most dense, broad spectrum nutrient known to me, but certainly I believe on Earth. The research that was done, I have no doubt, is the largest such research in nutritional science, or natural, I should use the word as well, of microalgae ever conducted on Earth, and I don't think it's going to happen again. It was a blessing that it could happen, backed up by the Academy of Science and the Ministry of Agriculture. It was a feast that was accomplished, and nowadays with capitalistic enterprises, nobody has the budget nor care to invent a natural product because it's not commercially viable or profitable. There are 4 major components or ingredients for algae. That's it. There's no other types of chemical added or additives or protection, nothing of such nature. These algae are grown, filtered, freeze-dried, and blended in proportions, which is a key to the reason of their efficiency. The proportions in the blends were tested and trialed over and over and over again until the researcher achieved what they thought was eureka. We found a solution that doesn't just slows down cancer, but actually tames it or renders it 0.0 and maintains if you wish, the healing process. It doesn't just increase killer T cell, but it does prevent cancer, and it did in these animal research allow healing and recovery. The power, again, I repeat, is in the blend and the synergy of the 3 major component, major algae, along with their thousands of nutrients compounds within. So in summary, BioSuperFood is not a drug, a medicine. It's not a supplement. It's a complement, rather, I would say, to our diet. And it's just not a typical superfood. I tell you, there are hundreds of superfoods out there, but nothing compares to what you will find in this capsule, as depicted here with incredible colors. And this is a macro, it's a digital picture, but it's still the macro level. If you were able to look microscopically, you would find all the colors of the universe in there, which is one of the key components of these algae, is the presence of not just green, such as chlorophyll, but of the multitude of carotenoid, the various beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, astaxanthin, etc. I believe it's beyond perfect. in its efficiency to deliver energy, because that is what food does. There are over 15,000 known, yet many more unknown. To give you an example, the humble apple, we now know that there's hundreds of nutrients in an apple, known, identifiable, but on the microcosm level, it doesn't really end there. It barely ever ends, because you can go smaller and smaller and smaller. And all elements of life, I believe, are essential. There is no such thing as essential fatty acid or essential amino acid. I believe they're all part of a better nutrition. Nutrition is about energy. It's not a medicine. It's not about medicine. The concept of let thy food be thy medicine was great when Hippocrates said that or proposed that. Certainly, we know today that food can also be what kills you, right? Food is a major component of obesity and many other diseases. And I mean by that, the wrong food or the wrong proportion or the junk foods, etc. But ultimately, we eat to deliver energy at the cellular level. We have 100 trillion cells in our body, as if, imagine if you had 100 trillion engine in your Lamborghini. That is the task of eating. We see here on the left side, I'm dramatizing with using colors here. A typical midlife fatigue person or maybe diseased person, but that is shown through symptoms. I'm tired, or I have this disease or this condition. But really, it all starts at the cellular level. So if all the cells of your liver are fatigued, malnourished, or intoxicated, your liver will start to not deliver its major function. So all these components here, we're talking about dehydration, acidity, lack of oxygen, atomic electrical polarity is off. You have intoxication, poor viscosity of the liquid within your cell, and so on and so forth, slow growth, slow repair, short life. The reverse is true. If you have a proper diet, if you stay fit and slim, and you do all you can to achieve better health. I'm dramatizing, but it is also a fact, because we're talking about BIOSUPERFOOD as cellular nutrition, that within 15 minutes of consuming a capsule, there is an immediate or 15-minute or so effect on all cells of the body, which are affected through the blood circulating these certainly 15,000 nutrients. But with the next chart, I'll explain to you a much more important dimension of nutrition. Suffice to say that when you consume BIOSUPERFOOD, when you start particularly, you can see this and measure these effects in your blood. For example, diabetic type 2, after a large meal, typically their blood sugar rises, sometimes abnormally high. Yet by consuming one capsule, half hour after the meal, they will see their blood sugar not so high. So it has immediately changed the blood formula. Similarly with anemia, we have also seen that. This is a busy chart. It is not perfect, by the way, in terms of the central part, but I'm trying to visually share a message. All vitamins and minerals and carotenoids and compounds and flavonoids that we consume enter our digestive process. And there's an explosion of billions of interactions, starting with the brain, which immediately, once it senses that you're going to eat, or even when you smell food, starts to trigger enzymic reactions, starting with your mouth, with the amylase, with salivary glands, your gastric juices in your stomach, your pancreas starts to prepares for bile or for breaking down protein, certain enzymes. And as much more activity takes place, even before you begin eating. I'm showing on the left side 3 types of, let's call it, substance that you can ingest. The first one at the top is BIOSUPERFOOD. We're talking about BIOSUPERFOOD, and it is complete balance. It's a whole food, and of course, in any whole food, there is perfect synergy within that single food. Here we're talking about, as I shared earlier, the most perfect food. Let's go down to regular food, macro food, such as apple, broccoli, celery, whatever is considered a whole food. Each of them has a particular subset of nutrients. A lowly apple, which is not so lowly when you look at the number of nutrients in there, is a very reasonably great food to consume, and it goes through the digestive machine very successfully. And at the bottom, I'm showing either single or multivitamin. And frankly, these are, in my book, considered isolates or separate from their nature. So in some of them, you might have just one nutrient, such as vitamin E or magnesium, etc. They are lacking all the components, the cofactor, the dependency that they should have for good assimilation, absorption, utilization, and even for good elimination. An example would be if you consume capsules of calcium on a daily basis, these capsules of calcium are probably lost in your stool. There is no proper assimilation. And for decades, vitamin C, for example, we've been told, oh, we now have zinc with vitamin C. We've added zinc in your supplement. Oh, and we now have flavonoid. Why? Because the first version of vitamin C or calcium were not assimilable, not used, and the marketers keep pushing ways to make you believe that these are as good as your regular food. That is not true. I am dramatizing here the assimilation efficiency to maximum with the BIOSUPERFOOD, as high assimilation, 100% assimilation, no doubt about it, net utilization of calcium and the various vitamins and carotenoid in the product, in the capsule. An apple as well, there's no doubt, but the difference between an apple and a capsule of BIOSUPERFOOD, the apple has a large content of fibers and non-usable, if you wish, components that will be simply passed through your digestive system and eliminated. And there's lots of water as well. So nothing wrong with that. But the difference here is BIOSUPERFOOD is 100% pure nutrient. There is no fiber or extra material that will not be utilized. I don't want to put down an apple ever. While below, I've already said my piece about these types of supplements. In dairy cow study, as well as poultry study, these animals often lose their calcium mass, their bone, their density, and often they are slaughtered because they can hardly support their weight anymore after just a few years or less of laying eggs or giving milk to the farmer. When introducing the BIOSUPERFOOD in their diet, these animals no longer suffered osteoporosis and no longer, and furthermore, delivered even better milk, richer in calcium, or better eggs with eggshell richer in calcium. So the assimilation increases significantly when you introduce BIOSUPERFOOD in your diet. This was a parenthesis in our talk today to show visually the difference between various types of food. So a quick reminder, we're talking about awakening the genius within. Certainly, the nutrients go throughout all blood vessels, and not just to the hypothalamus, but the hypothalamus is protected by blood barriers, and there's other blood barriers in the brain, the blood spinal fluid barrier, and so forth, or the blood retinal barrier. The BIOSUPERFOOD crosses all of these barriers. There is no barrier to BIOSUPERFOOD because it has all the components, and there are absolutely no antagonistic complementary. There is no toxicity in consuming BIOSUPERFOOD. Here again, dramatizing the state of health of a brain in aging and pre-Alzheimer, pre-dementia. The brain speed slows down every year dramatically as we get older. And certainly if we have the improper diet or junk food diet, it's going to impact the speed and all activity of the conductor of our body, the hypothalamus, will be slowed down or blocked in some ways or shape or form. On the right side, we show all signs of good health of the brain. As you introduce BIOSUPERFOOD in your diet, your brain speed increases the first day, overnight, no doubt about it. Here is again an image that depicts left and right, poor health, declining health, disease, and so forth, dramatizing. The yellow symbols there indicate that there are malfunction overall as our health decline, as our endocrine system starts declining, as even the hypothalamus becomes sluggish, fatigue, or develops negative feedback. For example, with diabetes, after decades of medication or of consuming Coca-Cola or other sweet, the brain starts to give up on adjusting the blood sugar. It relies on the person. Somewhat the brain will say, well, never mind, he's going to have another pint of Häagen-Dazs, so it doesn't bother as much. It's declining the biofeedback and the feedback loop. On the right side, we show vibrant activity, starting with the hypothalamus, cascading in all organs, all glands. Every cell of your body is impacted when the hypothalamus, the conductor, gets more involved, itself more energized. So today we are focusing on the pancreas and liver, which cannot be separated. I thank you for listening to the reminder aspects of why we are here, the research, and what is BIOSUPERFOOD and what is the mechanism of action of BIOSUPERFOOD. I will quickly introduce two charts, which, by the way, are not perfect. There may be errors here in terms of or interpretation, but I'm focusing here on just those hormones or other types of messenger that have to do with raising or lowering blood sugar in our body. You will notice that whether it be the T3 or insulin or glucagon or cortisol, all have to do with the hypothalamus, starting with the hypothalamus, which detects need to adjust and control and remedy. The pituitary, of course, is the master gland. And after that, you may have thyroid, adrenal, cortex. The pancreas itself is a gland, and even the liver is a gland, as you will see shortly. So I don't want you to memorize any of it. The presentation will be available. The recording will be available. Thank you very much. I will also say just a few words here, and then I'll invite Dr. Kiriac to join us. All I want to say with this chart is puis je te passe le bâton, Michel. All I wanted to say here is that both the liver and the pancreas are intimately involved in raising or lowering, adjusting the blood sugar, the sugar in our blood, but also you see the connection there with the hypothalamus always. And I'm now going to invite Dr. Kiriac to speak to us about the pancreas, which is why we are here today. Dr. Kiriac, thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming and for your presence at our webinar. An interest for the good understanding, I will speak in French. Okay.
And I will translate.
Okay. On va discuter de la grande importance de cette glande pancréas et avec la corrélation avec le foie et même avec les glandes surrénales en vue de maintenir l'homéostasis de la glucose dans le sang. Allez-y, Laurent.
We are going to talk today about the importance of the pancreas, as well as the surrenal glands and the liver aspect in the maintenance of homeostasis of the blood, of the sugar in the blood. À ton tour.
OK. Le pancréas, c'est une glande majeure dans l'organisme. C'est une glande endo et exocrine. Ça veut dire qu'elle émane les produits dans le tube digestif qui joue le rôle d'exocrine et qui émane les produits qui sont des hormones directement dans le sang qui joue le rôle d'endocrine. On sait tous que le pancréas, lui, donc, agit facilement pour détecter le taux de sucre dans le sang pour commencer son travail. Mais on aura des problèmes majeurs si on va laisser le pancréas de travailler, d'exercer ses fonctions lui-même. On n'aura que de hyperglycémie ou de hypoglycémie et on va perdre le terrain de contrôle sur le taux de glycémie dans le sang. D'accord, Roland?
Oui. All right. The pancreas is as you can see here, it's big on this chart, but it is a major gland in our body. It's critically important. It has two major functions. One is the endo and one is exo, meaning endo would be that it receives information from your food, from the food that we eat, and it detects the work that it has to do to adjust blood sugar or even digestive enzymes, as you know. So in that manner, it excretes hormones or insulins to balance our intake. If we neglect, if we neglect this pancreas gland via improper diet, we end up, as you all know, with major issues of imbalances of blood sugar and often called diabetes or high blood sugar and so forth.
OK. Mais la force majeure du pancréas, c'est toujours la production enzymatique. Mais vous savez que le système digestif ne fait rien sans des enzymes digestifs qui sont produits et par le pancréas aussi. Comme les trypsines, par exemple, qui vont digérer les protéines et chymotrypsines. comme les amylases, qui vont digérer les
Carbo.
oui, les carbohydrates, et les lipases, qui vont digérer les gras. Et c'est encore plus majeur, parce que c'est pour ça que la relation entre le pancréas et le foie et l'estomac, ils font partie tous de le tube digestif. Car de notre foie, il arrive là beaucoup de lipases, du foie. Du côté de l'estomac arrive beaucoup de pepsines, des enzymes qui vont digérer les protéines. Et ça donne une bonne harmonie pour moi. Mais toujours sur le contrôle de l'hypothalamus. Et je vais vous expliquer pourquoi. Allez-y, Roland.
The dimension of the pancreas in terms of digestive enzymes is obviously extremely important. Without the pancreas, there's no proper digestion. It is involved in liberating trypsins, amylase, lipase to digest fats, amylase for carbohydrates, trypsin to break down proteins. And there's a relationship, of course, in our digestive system between stomach, pancreas, and liver. These three work in harmony. I think that's what from the stomach would come pepsins, from the pancreas, trypsins for protein breakdown, liver, lipase, and also in the beginning of our digestive process was the mouth with amylase and other salivary enzymes.
Excellent. Il y a encore une fonction très importante produite par le pancréas, c'est la production de liquide alcalin qui va gérer toujours le taux d'acidité dans l'organisme. Voilà. Tu peux traduire, Roland?
Yeah. Another very important aspect of the pancreas is the delivery of alkalizing juices. As soon as your food comes out, the churn comes out of your stomach, it's very acidic from the gastric juices there, and is immediately alkalized with bile, which is triggered by the pancreas.
C'est pour cette raison que les problèmes pancréatiques deviennent très graves. Ils sont très difficiles à les détecter, mais quand le problème s'arrive, alors ça arrive. Ça va être très difficile à corriger, à contrôler cette malheur. Parce que regardez qu'est-ce qui se passe. À part de toutes ces fonctions, nous avons dans le pancréas des millions de cellules, des minuscules des cellules, des îlots de Langerhans. Et dans cet îlot, vous avez ici un îlot de Langerhans majoré, oui, avec des cellules delta, bêta et alpha. C'est eux qui contrôlent le pancréas, qui contrôlent le taux de sucre. S'il te plaît, Roland.
Okay, so the pancreas has a critical importance, and it will work for you hard for many years, many decades. But when problems arrive, not that it's too late, but they can be very severe, both digestive or blood sugar conditions, and also very difficult to correct because these problems are somewhat ingrained and they don't happen overnight. We see here a description, a visual representation of the pancreas, but in reality, the pancreas is made of millions of cells, millions upon millions of cells, and focusing specifically on these unique cells that are called islet of Langerhans. In the exploded little diagram there on the bottom right, it only shows one of these islet of Langerhans, which has three functions, more than three, but certainly one is the alpha cell to deliver glucagon, and the delta cell to secrete somatostatin, which are inhibiting to stop something, and the beta cell that secretes insulin. Now imagine there are millions of such cells in the pancreas.
C'est très important. Nous avons plus de cellules delta qui sont des cellules avec des productions d'insuline qui sont hyperglycémiques. Et latéral, nous avons des cellules de alpha qui produisent de glucagon. Mais l'importance de la delta cellule pour corriger le taux d'activité, d'inhiber l'activité de une ou de l'autre cellule. Et voyez-vous qu'est-ce qui se passe? Dans l'hypothalamus, nous avons une hormone hypothalamique qui s'appelle hormone de croissance humaine. Et c'est lui qui active les cellules spéciales de l'adénohypophyse qui nous fabrique une hormone trafiquante. Et c'est cette hormone de croissance qui prend soin de l'intégrité des cellules alpha, bêta et delta cells dans le pancréas. Ça veut dire que la santé des cellules de alpha, bêta et delta cells dans l'îlot du pancréas dépend beaucoup de cette hormone et contrôlée et coordonnée par l'hormone de croissance de la hypothalamus et hypophyse. Sinon, allez-y, Roland.
We see that at the bottom there on the right, we see that we have alpha cell, which role is to trigger glucagon. We have the beta cell, which trigger insulin. And in the middle, we see delta cells, which role is to keep the balance between these two, somewhat a check. If there's too much insulin, then it'll trigger the other. But lest we forget that the hypothalamus is intimately involved with this phenomena, with these functions, particularly via human growth hormone, which keeps in check down to the pancreas the integrity, the balance of these function of these cells within the pancreas. So I guess that's what he said, that the pancreas is an extraordinary manager, if you wish, but it is still a slave to the hypothalamus all the time. We showed earlier that everything the pancreas done is registered in the blood, and the brain receives information from the blood. So constantly there's an adjustment and a control from the hypothalamus.
Et on tombe tout de suite sur la diète. Vous voyez à quel point les cellules de Langerhans, mais écoutez, des centaines de millions de cellules de Langerhans dans le pancréas, ils sont trop petites, mais qui produisent des aimants, donc libèrent des hormones en très petite quantité. On parle des minuscules. Et voilà la corrélation avec le BIOSUPERFOOD. Parce que vous savez, c'est la vie et la nutrition, la respiration cellulaire sur la Terre est initiée par les algues. par les cyanobactéries qui font partie composante de BIOSUPERFOOD. Eux, ils ont dans une petite capsule plus de 15 000 unités nutritives en très petite quantité, mais sont très, très, très actifs, avec une gamme d'actions trop large et trop forte. Voilà pourquoi on a besoin de petites quantités, une capsule de formule 3 qui va nourrir comme il faut et le cerveau et l'hypothalamus. Et c'est les hormones hypothalamiques et hypophysaires vont prendre soin des cellules de Langerhans. Et c'est eux qui vont contrôler le taux de sucre dans le sang. C'est la synergie, la grande synergie qui doit être 1 gramme de glucose par litre de sang. Calculez bien, une très petite quantité des hormones, d'insuline ou bien de glycogène qui contrôle une quantité majeure de glucose dans le sang, 1 gramme de litre par 1 gramme de glucose par litre de sang. Imaginez-vous bien, c'est une quantité immense par rapport à la quantité des hormones libérées, qui sont contrôlées toujours et améliorées par une quantité encore minime de BIOSUPERFOOD dans la diète de notre organisme.
I think, Russell, you were there 20 years ago in Denver, Colorado. Dr. Kiriac was drawing this pancreas on the board, and someone was attending our small conference, actually in my home, and asked the question, how do supplements compare to BIOSUPERFOOD? And I remember very, very well when Dr. Kiriac said, you know, if you wanted to take supplements to do the work of the pancreas, such as digestive enzymes and so forth, you would have to be taking a pill every second of the day, the entire day, and it wouldn't even come close to. Imagine the pancreas has hundreds of millions of these cells that are constantly triggering, releasing microscopic, extremely small types of hormones in the blood that is carried on to every cell in your body. This is an incredible complexity. Here, when we introduce the BIOSUPERFOOD, which is very, very similar, contains over 15,000 known, and we could even say the gross compounds and nutrients, which on a microcosm level, there are many, many more. And when entering your bloodstream, with the interaction of all these millions of released hormones by the pancreas and the liver, by the way, and the hypothalamus, imagine a cloud of activity that takes place that is made to be very positive because of the marriage when you consume BIOSUPERFOOD, and it becomes all over your body, but certainly the effect is direct as well on the hypothalamus. And so you have a much better homeostasis overall of the pancreas and the liver, but also, as you know from our other presentation, of any other functions of the body is bettered when you introduce BIOSUPERFOOD in your life on a regular basis, several times per day.
On ne peut pas contrôler l'insuline qu'on l'injecte avec une injection dans les muscles et avec une quantité de millions de fois plus petite d'insuline et libérée par les cellules de Langerhans, par bêta cells. C'est pour ça qu'il est important de garder ces cellules en bonne santé. Imaginez-vous une injection et une minuscule quantité d'insuline est libérée par les bêta-cellules des cellules de Langerhans. Et ça, c'est majeur, et ça, c'est important. Voilà pourquoi l'importance des biosuperaliments, qu'on prend une capsule, vous prenez prendre 2 capsules, mesurez d'abord le taux de glycémie. Vous allez prendre 2 capsules, dans 20-30 minutes, répétez au taux de glycémie, le sucre tombe en bas immédiatement. Parce qu'il lui agite immédiatement sur l'hypothalamus, sur l'hypophyse et celui de Langerhans, dans très petite quantité.
Okay.
Voilà.
Hence, if you are having to inject insulin, you will never come close to the natural homeostasis that you have with your normal health, pancreatic and liver function. So hence, remaining in good health is critically important in our life. It's a choice to not eat the junk food and so forth. In experiment that we have conducted several times and many of our clients, like I said earlier, if you take a capsule or 2, if you wish, of the BioSuperFood Formula 3, and you have a normally high level of sugar in your blood, you would see it drop within a matter of 20-30 minutes. And why? Because of the effect of this food, of this nutrition rendering energy at the hypothalamus, and subsequently the hypothalamus getting involved very closely with all these functions.
Comprenez-moi bien et correct. Je ne veux pas dire que ceux qui utilisent l'insuline, qui prennent des injections d'insuline, ils doivent s'arrêter immédiatement. Non, en aucun cas. Mais l'insuline, lui, agit seulement sur l'utilisation de glucose partout dans les cellules. Mais elle ne récupère pas les cellules endommagées. L'insuline d'injection. Et avec une capsule de biosuperaliments, lui va prendre soin du cerveau, de l'hypothalamus, de l'hypophyse et de la taux d'activité des cellules de Langerhans. On vient de vous expliquer à l'intérieur comment, avec le hormone de libération du hypothalamus, prendre soin de la santé des cellules bêta, alpha et delta. C'est ça qui est important pour moi, de savoir si vous avez bien compris ça ou non.
We are not saying, Dr. Kiriac is certainly not saying if you are injecting insulin at this time in your life, to quit, to stop overnight. Absolutely not. If you have the desire and there is a possibility of stopping, as you know, there are other means out there, changing your diet and so forth. But certainly introducing BioSuperFood and gradually seeing your metabolism come around, and where there's a possibility of diminishing, reducing, weaning away from the injection, that is possible. We have many of our clients that have been successful. I want to share with you a quick anecdote that Dr. Kiriac did not mention. We had once, he had a client that he was helping in his home country of Moldova. And the fellow, it was suggested that he should take up to 12 capsules per day on an hourly basis, 1 capsule. He was diabetic type 2. And it was working very, very well for him. He was beginning to wean off of insulin. I believe he had achieved that. And he was very careful with his diet, because during that transition period, you have to be careful. You don't want to quit anything suddenly. But what is interesting is that a few months later, in a conversation with Dr. Kiriac, it turned out he was not taking a whole capsule. He was taking 1/3 of a capsule hourly. And yet it was still working well for him. And he did that because of economic reason. It was pretty expensive for him to purchase the BioSuperFood. So I wanted to share that point. Insulin injection does not help repair the pancreas or repair those extraordinary cells here, the cells, islets of Langerhans type cells, which are for some reason or other, because of abuse of sugar and imbalance, are not functioning well. Injecting insulin does not repair anything. It simply, as you know, injects a substance. And really, you're at this point, as I mentioned earlier, the hypothalamus, you're playing with its role. So you're creating confusion even in the biofeedback with the hypothalamus.
OK.
Yeah.
On peut passer sur la prochaine, sur la suivante, Roland. Okay. Non. OK, reste ici. Reste ici. Regardez qu'est-ce qui se passe avec l'importance de bien nourrir le cerveau avec le bio-superaliment pour faire bien fonctionner le pancréas et pour faire bien utiliser la glucose. Et voilà. En haut, nous avons une situation correcte pour une personne en ordre. Donc, le pancréas, lui, fabrique d'insuline, le libère dans le sang parce que par la circulation sanguine. Et nous avons ici, qui est ronde, qui est grande, ronde, ici, nous avons une cellule. Pour utiliser la glucose qui vient du sang, il faut une permission pour la glucose qui rentre dans la cellule. Qui rentre dans la cellule pour faire nourrir les mitochondria qui vont donner de l'énergie et qui vont faire fonctionner les muscles, ils vont faire fonctionner toute la cellule. Mais pour cela, nous avons besoin d'un récepteur d'insuline. Et pas peu importe quel récepteur, parce que nous avons d'insuline en forme ronde, en forme triangulaire comme ici, en forme carrée, en différentes formes, même en forme de différentes formes. Et c'est dû à une bonne nutrition du cerveau avec le pancréas, qui cette hormone de croissance va laisser savoir les cellules de Langerhans de quelle forme d'insuline, la forme d'insuline, on a besoin pour être accepté dans cet récepteur. Et c'est là que la porte dans la cellule s'ouvre pour faire passer la glucose à l'intérieur. À l'aise, Alexandre, Roland?
Oui. On this diagram, we see at the top a healthy, normal liver, a pancreatic function. We see the pancreas fabricating insulin and liberating it in the bloodstream and converging towards the cell on the right, the circle there. We see a cell, we see one receptor, an insulin receptor, and we see on the other side the glucose being allowed, permitted to enter based on the insulin giving permission. Now, these insulin receptors vary. There's a different shape as well as the insulin shape, as you see the little triangle. These takes many forms, and it is the hypothalamus that is intimately involved in informing the cells of which receptors should be generated to allow which type of insulin. We shared earlier that the human body is, we don't know the tip of the iceberg, but that is something that we know already in biology and chemistry, that the growth hormones, as mentioned earlier, released by the hypothalamus and subsequently the pituitary gland, have an intimate relationship with even this mechanism here at the cellular level.
Excellent. Et c'est pour cette raison qu'avec une telle petite quantité d'insuline émanée par les cellules Langerhans, on devient assez correct. Et c'est pour cette raison qu'on n'arrive jamais à contrôler tout ce processus physiologique avec de l'insuline qui vient d'une injection. Et vous sachez que, vous savez bien que dans une phase tardive, tous qui sont avec un diabète avancé, ils maigrissent jusqu'à le décès. Parce qu'il en a trop d'insuline qui va ailleurs. Mais nous avons besoin d'une petite quantité, mais juste pour lui dire, voilà la porte, allez-y, go,
Oui.
go ahead, parce que c'est là votre place.
Ok, je dois traduire. So imagine that, not imagine, it's a fact that the very minuscule amount of insulin that is liberated, that is manufactured and liberated by these hundreds of millions of cells of islets of Langerhans, as we on the previous diagram, we have the beta, delta, and alpha cells, is sufficient to manage the body's entire sugar balance and cellular energy. While with a massive injection of insulin, never will you come to a perfect balance. And often with advanced diabetes, as it progresses, you'll see people starting to lose weight because the insulin no longer goes inside the cell. It goes everywhere else in the body. It becomes a toxic and useless, and does not provide the support production of energy at the cellular level.
OK. Mais nous avons la deuxième part ici, le diabète numéro 1, qui l'insuline se fabrique presque pas dans les cellules de Langerhans. Et nous avons des problèmes majeurs la glucose reste dans le sang, et nous avons des problèmes majeurs. Alors on pique avec l'insuline qui, en très petite quantité, elle va être utilisée pour faire passer la glucose dans les cellules pour être utilisée, qui est une catastrophe. Et regardez, mais oui, ils vont vous dire, plusieurs spécialistes, que non, il y en a des gens qui vivent toute la vie avec l'insuline. On se fait piquer. Donc, oui, ça c'est vrai. Quelle vie il mène, vous le savez bien. Et en bas, vous les avez aussi dans la diabète numéro 2. Donc, mais c'est la même chose, voyez-vous, la gauche ne savent pas qui fait la droite. Mais dans le problème final, la glucose, il n'est pas utilisé, il ne trouve pas sa porte, il n'est pas accepté dans leur bonne place. Parce que la glucose est non seulement pour donner de l'énergie pour que les mitochondries travaillent bien, mais la glucose est fantastique, et pour la croissance des muscles, et pour la croissance des tissus osseux, pour les tissus adipeux, pour le cerveau, pour la réseau cardiovasculaire, pour les artères, pour les veines. Elle est utile partout avec les minéraux qui sont dans l'organisme. C'est pour cette raison qu'il est important de garder la santé de votre cerveau en forme avec quelques capsules de formule 3, et vous allez voir à quel point donc, la vie devient facile. Oui, bien sûr qu'il ne faut pas manger de cochonneries. Ne coupez pas la branche sur laquelle vous êtes. Non, contrôlez votre vie, contrôlez votre diète, contrôlez votre assiette. Parce que nous avons eu avec Roland et d'autres exemples. J'étais en train d'expliquer exactement la même chose, et un monsieur de Los Angeles, je ne vais pas dire son nom, il dit non, c'est pas vrai. Moi, je bois 16 cafés par jour, et je prends votre capsule et je suis correct. C'est ça le problème, que le produit, le bio-super-aliment donne des résultats trop vite. Les gens pensent qu'ils sont corrects, et à la fin, donc, quelqu'un est coupable. Non.
OK, j'en ai une bonne bouchée à traduire. Uh, so we see healthy function at the top, and then we have in both cases of type 1 and type 2 a situation where, in Dr. Kiriac's word, the left side doesn't know what the right side is doing. In other words, in type 1 diabetes, the insulin, the pancreas generates barely enough or none at all to allow glucose to penetrate the cell, because the insulin receptors are there, but there's no insulin coming in. On the type 2, yes, the pancreas may generate insulin, but there's a confusion. The insulin receptors of the eye of the cells are not the proper receptors for the insulin that is being secreted. And in both cases, in both image 2 and the bottom, you have the glucose free flowing in the blood and not serving the energy of the cell. The important to consider also is that glucose is much more important than simply increasing mitochondria energy. It is also used in many other tissues and functions of the body, including in the brain and growth of muscle mass, in harmony with many other compounds or chemical in our body. It's a very critical, important nutrients. Hence, for that reason, that we should consider maintaining good health, maintaining proper health by not consuming junk food all day long. Dr. Kiriac says not to cut the branch on which you stand. In other words, by eating improper food, you're causing your own sabotage. There was a man that, as I was there when Dr. Kiriac met one of our good friend, good client. At the time, he used to drink 16 cups of large cups of coffee daily. He had started taking BIOSUPERFOOD and he had felt a renewal of energy, of good health. But he carried on drinking 16 cups of coffee every day. The story doesn't go any further than that, but it's not a good idea to, because you feel better with the BIOSUPERFOOD, which is the case when you first start particularly, to carry on doing, sabotaging your own health. Voilà.
Ouais, parce que le BIOSUPERFOOD, il peut faire beaucoup de choses dans l'organisme, mais lui, il ne pourra pas vous battre sur les mains qui disent « Oh, stop, arrêtez au déposer de cochonnerie, au déboire de cochonnerie. » Passez à la dernière.
Oui, celle-là?
Ah, voilà. Tu peux le dire, tu peux le traduire, Sarah?
Okay, well, we've seen that one when we first started, but now that you have the big picture, important to know that within the pancreas, you have these hundreds of trillions of islet of Langerhans cells that generates glucagon or insulin back and forth, left and right, in cooperation, constant, trillions of interaction, certainly when you eat, but even during rest and so on, that has to go on all the time, in cooperation, in harmony with the liver. We could speak about the liver as well for an hour. The liver itself has many important functions, but very important to remember that the brain, hypothalamus, and the endocrine glands are intimately involved in these metabolism. It's not a soldier on its own. We have when all the cells of the pancreas work together, then we will win not just a battle, but we'll win the war. That's it for that one.
Okay.
Okay, so, tu voulais-tu parler?
Non, ça va.
Okay, now
No,
again.
no, tu peux come back.
Whoop. I have to come back.
Thank you very much. Et il fallut que je fais ce diagramme à la main, mais je l'ai fait déjà, mais je le trouve ça beaucoup plus beau. Mais voyez-vous, l'hormone inhibiteur du cellule delta, qui s'appelle somatostatine, c'est lui qui, quand l'insuline s'augmente, quand le glucose s'augmente dans le sang, mais tout d'abord, lui est transformé dans le foie dans glycogène, et l'insuline est corrigée à chaque fois avec d'autres hormones qui s'appellent somatostatine. Le somatostatine lui contrôle, mais c'est très important que cette petite cellule des cellules Langerhans, de yellow Langerhans, qui s'appelle delta cells, qui produit cette hormone. Quand une hormone s'augmente, lui il stoppe, arrête la production d'insuline et commence la production de glucagon et à l'inverse. Et ça, c'est important, ça. Voyez-vous, on ne peut pas faire ça avec une injection d'insuline. Ça prend par la voie nutritionnelle, avec une nutrition complète, avec une petite capsule de 290 mg qui fait une révolution majeure dans tous les tissus de notre organisme. Merci.
Okay. Summary, but repetition. It's not on this chart, but the delta cells of the islet of Langerhans, which is a type.
Langerhans, c'est le gars qui a développé sur le microscope les cellules de Langerhans.
Qui a découvert, ouais. It's called islet of Langerhans because Mr. Langerhans was a scientist that identified those cells, those specialized cells of the pancreas. One of them is the delta, which produces somatostatins, which, by the way, the hypothalamus also produces somatostatins, which are inhibiting or hormones that are released to make sure that insulin and glucose is balanced. When there is too much glucose in the blood, then these delta cells release this hormone, somatostatin, so that the liver starts to reduce glucose release and lowers blood sugar and so forth. So this cannot be achieved with injection of insulin. And this description is simplistic, but remember, there's hundreds of millions of cells doing this work constantly 24 hours 7. It is not with an injection of insulin in the morning and at noon that you can change for the better your health. So importance of eating a proper diet, of maintaining your health starting today for the rest of your life. It should be a hobby of yours. The principal hobby of your life is to keep your health in good check.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kiriac, for this. I want to summarize here that there are 3 different grades of BIOSUPERFOOD. They are possibly usable for any age if the need is there. Of rendering energy to the brain more rapidly, more intensively, yet you have to control that by starting slowly. Is not recommended for infant or childhood if there's no conditions needing it. It is, I will let you read it as I speak, but the Formula 1 is best suggested for healthy children and to keep them healthy. Even young teens could fare very, very well. In this day and age, with the type of pollution that is in our atmosphere, that is in our diet, in the food that we buy, and certainly with even the emotional fear that we are now under, this war that is happening in our world with COVID and vaccination, it's much better if you're an adult to go towards Formula 2 and Formula 3 at 6 capsules per day. The times have changed. This is not 1940 La La Land. You and I know of the GMO and all the pollutants everywhere. So take care of your health. This one small capsule taken 6 times per day creates a evolutionary revolution in your body. I say evolutionary because you don't want to start taking 6 on the first day. You want to start with 1 a day and increase to 6 within a period of 1 week or 2. Because when you start with too quickly, you have a bit of a revolution, I tell you. So that is our suggestion. If you have any questions, you can email me or Dr. Kiriac. I will inform all the new customers, potential, if you would like to try it, to use a discount coupon code. Right now, you could use one that is named THANKS, THANKS, as for Thanksgiving, valid until Monday night, or use intro space 10%, the number 10 and the percent sign to get a 10% discount. I invite you to try it. You will feel the difference often overnight. And I, at BioAge, guarantee it for 30 days. On your first bottle, opened or not, we will reimburse you. So we invite you to try it. Every family in America, in the world, should have a bottle of BioSuperFood on their breakfast, dinner, and lunch and dinner table. This is my recommendation. Thank you. And if you would like to come in with some questions, we have time for that, if any.
Roland, there is a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Is can you address BioSuperFood's impact on vax detox?
Uh-huh. Did you hear this one, Doctor?
Linda?
Je te répète
Oui.
la question
Linda, say in French, please.
en français.
En
Linda,
français, si tu peux te servir de BioSuperFood pour détoxifier les vaccinations, l'effet des vaccins. C'est une
tout
bonne
d'abord,
question.
il faut détoxifier l'effet de if you must to do the detoxification because the vaccine, there is not vaccine, no? It is other things. Si on veut se désintoxiquer à cause du vaccin, ça veut dire qu'on ne prend pas un vaccin. Mais pour qu'est-ce que c'est une intoxication? C'est une augmentation, c'est une acidité aiguë. Ils ont un effet donc allergique. Plusieurs choses sur le système immunitaire, sur le système nerveux central. C'est un débalance, c'est un déséquilibre total. Ce qui fait à l'inverse le BIOSUPERFOOD, c'est la culmination de la nutrition cellulaire cérébrale, boire de l'eau qui fait partie de la diète, boire des jus, et elle va contrôler la fabrication de chaque glande interne et endocrine et exocrine qui vont nettoyer l'organisme, qui vont récupérer les cellules endommagées. Et la vie est belle. Mais il faut prendre activement, parce que ça augmente, non seulement on détoxifie l'organisme, mais on augmente, je n'ai pas le droit de dire ça, mais je vous donne une réponse. On va augmenter la résistance. On n'utilise pas l'immunité, on va augmenter beaucoup la résistance de l'organisme avec le BIOSUPERFOOD.
Okay. I don't think the giggle was because it's a funny topic. It's a very important topic, and it is factual now that we all know from many research paper, the devastating effect potential of vaccination. We're talking here the C19, the C19 vaccine currently. It causes many different kinds of, as you well know, starting with inflammation, potentially thrombosis, and on and on. Spike protein imbalance. So it's an intoxication, which is a kind of a poisoning, which causes endocrine imbalance, cellular malfunction. The brain as well becomes confused. It's a disaster. Any intoxication. So on a scale of 0 to 10, there's low-grade intoxication or severe intoxication. BIOSUPERFOOD, absolutely. And we highly recommend, especially if you have a current ongoing intoxication or post-vaccination, the diet becomes extremely important. To have a proper alkalizing diet of many plant food and plants and fruit, proper juices and smoothies, and other good food that you can find for your diet that are supportive of cleansing. And then the BIOSUPERFOOD on a regular basis increases the involvement of the hypothalamus, pituitary, all endocrine function, all organ function, all cellular function, down to the islet of Langerhans, all detoxification effort, arterial detoxification, plaquing detoxification, which was proven in research, increases our resistance to free radical, to potentially to cancer, because of killer T cell, which will quench tumors while they are microscopic, before they become named, before they become discoverable. That's what you want to be. You want to be in a prevention mode. And there's a war out there, and your body is able to win the war, not just the one battle of the day. Voila.
More question?
There is one more question. It's from Lori. One that says, if I may, please confirm how much to take and how often, and also are probiotics and probiotics helpful, even for a while starting the journey to better health?
Tu peux leur expliquer, Roland?
Oui.
Mais à la fois, tu peux leur dire que donc, le BIOSUPERFOOD, le BIOSUPERFOOD lui ajoute aussi comme beaucoup plus que le probiotique. À cause de la formation des microflores intestinales immédiates.
We have guidelines, which we can happily share, which describe exactly how to start cautiously, depending on your state of health, depending if you're medicated. But that's why we cannot give just a blanket suggestion. But definitely, the concept is to start with one capsule, and over a period of 1 week or even a month. If you have blood pressure, for example, you'll have to start more slowly and maybe go to Formula 2. Those information are in the guidelines. Otherwise, is it okay to take the probiotics for a while you're converging toward better health? There's no, I wouldn't even tell you to stop anything that you're doing except for junk food. By the way, I used to take 25 different supplements, probiotic included, and vitamin X and D and B and minerals. And I quit everything within weeks of starting BIOSUPERFOOD because I noticed that my health was improving overnight and every day. It was incredible. So I abandoned those 25 different supplements that I had been taking for nearly 20 years because I had never felt the results of taking those. BIOSUPERFOOD will dramatically change your intestinal flora fairly rapidly towards the better balance of negating the improper bacteria toward the good bacteria, so that you will very soon not have to take help, digestive help like probiotics, etc. You will actually feel your digestive bowel move, and you can verify in your stools and your urines the changes that take place when you start BIOSUPERFOOD. You will see your urine become more chalky, and you'll see different, potentially, everyone is different, by the way, but you will see, don't be afraid to look at your stool. You will see the brown and the black and the red and the different colors, because these are plaque detaching. There's no doubt about it. You will see that if you're a new customer, a new user. Obviously, some people are very good health and it won't be as apparent. But for most, it's apparent that some changes are coming, changes are happening as the days go by. Yeah. Other question?
I have, there's another one. Are there 3 or 4 microalgae in Formula 2 and 4? I'm assuming it's Formula 3. 3 or 4 microalgae in Formula 2 and 3.
In all 3 formulas, Formula 1, Formula 2, and Formula 3, there are the same 4 microalgae in slightly different proportion, but also in different technology. By that, let me give you an example. Formula 1, you can see the bottle looks blue. The Formula 2 looks green. The Formula 3 looks more reddish. In reality, it's not that dramatic, but it's to show that there's a presence of more concentrated carotenoid, the color, the red, orange, blue pigments, more intensified due to increasing light or lux during the growth of the plant, which stresses the plant to become Dunaliella, from a naturally occur in nature, has about 12% carotenoid content. Under the stress of light, it can jump up to 25%. Those are discoveries during the research that all the scientists discovered and implemented. The same effect of the sun on an apple becomes red, or a tomato. These are carotenoid. There's protection from the negative effect of sunlight. Antioxidation, that's what we're talking about. So there's 3 formula, all have the same 4 microalgae, but in slightly different proportion, but also different concentration.
Okay. It looks like it's all the questions. Are there any other questions?
There are no more questions.
Yeah, it is 3:30. I think we did very well. This is a nutrition 601 formation, by the way. I hope you. This is not an easy topic that we just covered.
Nous avons ici un spécialiste qui travaille avec nous, ça fait longtemps, c'est Russell, Louis. Peut-être Russell, can you share with us some experience? Lui m'entend pas.
Oui, Tanta. Russell, Dr. Kiriac shared with the group that you have been with us for 20 years, and you have had many experience and certainly on the animal side as well, but also on the human side. If you would like to share a few words, please do.
Sure, I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very well.
Okay. I've been an independent distributor for about 20 years, focusing on the animals, but I also handle humans. And I think the most important concept that I got out of today, as well as my 20 years of experience, is you can't supplement the symptoms and expect to be healthy. And what I mean by that is supplementing with a vitamin C pill, supplementing with a fish oil capsule, supplementing with a digestive enzyme pill, which only has maybe 6 digestive enzymes. I mean, there are hundreds of digestive enzymes. And just like we went over today, there are hundreds of ways of nourishing the pancreas. And so supplementing the pancreas with just insulin is just a minuscule part of balancing and making the pancreas healthy. Essentially, all you're doing with insulin is making the glucose balanced and able to penetrate the cell, and that's it. And so you're only doing yourself a disservice by supplementing the symptoms with medications and isolated supplements, whereas to get the full balance and full complexity of all the nutrition, you need to eat foods, because that's the only way nature designed our bodies and our animals' bodies to be healthy, is to eat whole foods. Because whole foods have thousands of enzymes, nutrients, phytonutrients, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, you know, on and on and on. And so that's what I've learned in 20 years. And everything Roland says, I've proven with my clients, both people and animals. Pertaining specifically to today, I've had people and pets not only reduce their insulin intake, but eliminate their insulin intake once they get their body in balance. And this is just with BioSuperFood and biopreparation, because it is a food, not because it's an insulin supplement, not because it's a digestive enzyme supplement. But what you're doing is you're feeding the defective glands what it needs, but more importantly, you're feeding the brain and the 3 most important glands in the brain, which would be the hypothalamus, pituitary, and pineal glands. And this is the genius behind the product and why I'm still using it. And it's my primary product for my holistic practice in 20 years. So that's what I got out of the talk today and 20 years of experience of using Dr. Kiriac's biologic concentrate products.
Thank you very much, Russell, for sharing. And don't hesitate to contact Russell. Russell, you can share your email and website.
It's maybe I'll just type it in the chat so people can see it. It's easier.
And I'll mention it, optimumchoices.com. And I believe his email is russell@optimumchoices.com.
Excellent.
Wellnesschoices.com.
Thank you very much, Russell.
You're welcome, Dr. Kiriac. And thank you very much for your research and your wisdom and your wonderful products.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything more holistic than BioSuperFood and biopreparation.
We are bragging. It is the perfect storm, I like to call it. You know, when I take a capsule, I envision the million, of course, we say 15,000 microcosm, there's millions of compounds in food floating in my body, mixing with trillions of other supplements in our enzymes and so on and so forth, traveling our bloodstream in milliseconds, converging everywhere in your body to feed cells perfectly and certainly reach the brain, cross any barrier. There's no debris. There is no burden of consuming BioSuperFood. There's no fatigue consuming it. It doesn't grab your energy. It delivers you some energy. So that's what happens when I take a capsule. That's where I go. And I feel it. Literally, I feel it change my mood, my focus sometimes within 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Roland, j'aimerais donc vous laisser un message. Et le prochain webinaire, j'aimerais partager l'impact de BIOSUPERFOOD sur l'activité des glandes surrénales et l'activité rénale des reins. On va vous inviter, disons, dans 3 semaines, disons, avant Noël. Si vous serez disponible et si ça vous intéresse. On va parler des choses comme l'importance capitale de la glande surrénale et comment elle est bloquée et quel impact a sur la santé. L'importance capitale des reins comme étant un organe et comme une glande à la fois, et comment les reins, avec ces hormones, impactent la formation, le contrôle de la formule sanguine. Je vous assure que ça sera intéressant. On vous invite cordialement. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, Dr. Kiriac just put me on notice too, though we had discussed this, that we are in our next talk, we will talk about the kidney and adrenal glands. And by the way, the kidney is also a gland, which is responsible for the blood formula. Those critical organs that when they become deficient and debilitated, causes major issues in our body. I'm going to give you a very dramatic example. Someone that we know, or I know, amongst the many people that I know, was hospitalized with COVID and not vaccinated. That is not relevant, but because of kidney issues in his life, he was already on some kidney disease medication, ended up on the respirator and eventually passed. He was put as well on dialysis while on a respirator. Can you imagine the situation? So importance of keeping your overall health, your kidney, your adrenals, your glands through good diet and good lifestyle. Thank you very much. We will see you in 2 or 3 weeks. Before Christmas is the plan. We will invite you via email again. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Dr. Kiriac.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.